Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Berks County. My name is Patricia Udibe Lichty, and my pronouns are she and her. As Unitarian Universalists, we come together not with a list of required beliefs, but a set of shared values centered on unconditional, unshakable love. Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are at this moment, in the sanctuary or online, wherever you are on your life's journey, you're welcome into this community. As we are gathering, I want to extend a special welcome to anyone who is visiting us for the first time and invite you to join with us after the service for coffee and conversation in the Gerber Room. Those joining online, please take a moment to write your name in the chat box and let us know where you're joining from this morning. You'll find the UU Berks Church web address in the chat box and a link to today's order of service. You can sign up on the web page for our weekly email newsletter. At the conclusion of today's service, we will have fellowship time. But for now, let's take a moment to greet each other with a smile or namaste or wave. Let us take a moment to center ourselves as we prepare for worship. Our child's reading this morning is by Julianne Lett. This is the time for you to light your chalice at home, if you have one, while our chalice is lit in the sanctuary. We light this chalice with hope, a sturdy faith that we nurture in these difficult times. We light this chalice with a heart of compassion for a nation divided by politics and strife. We light this chalice knowing it will take all of us to repair this world we live in. May we find rest, compassion, and the hope that we need to nurture ourselves and each other. May this sturdy light remind us of the people we can be and the difference we can make in the world together. Please rise in body or spirit and join in our opening hymn, 347, Gather the Spirit.
Gather the Spirit, harvest the power, our separate fires will kindle one flame. Witness the mystery of this hour, our trials in this light appear all the same. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then, gather in hope, compassion and strength, gather to celebrate once again. Gather the spirit of heart and mind, seeds for the sowing are laid in store, nurtured in love and conscience refined, with body and spirit united once more. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then, gather in hope, compassion and strength, gather to celebrate once again. Gather the Spirit growing in awe, drawn by the moon and fed by the sun, winter to spring and summer to fall, the chorus of life resounding as one. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then, gather in hope, compassion and strength, gather to celebrate once again.
Good morning. I bring to you this morning an ancient tale of wisdom that I wrote in 2016. This is the tale of the famine, the alchemist, and the philosopher queen. It was so, and it was not so, that once, long ago, a great town sat nestled in the crook of a lush green valley. The town was the jewel of the kingdom, peaceful and industrious and happy. Its farms produced abundant food, its schools produced abundant knowledge, and its people had never known stress or strife, at least as far as most people could remember. Now the town was flanked by two great hills, and on each hill stood a grand building. On the hill to the south was the magnificent palace of the queen, a tall and sprawling home with more room inside than any one person could ever need. The queen was loved by her subjects because she was fair and wise. Most people assumed that this was because fairness and wisdom were just inherent queenly qualities, but the truth was that the queen's wisdom and fairness were born from her love of the people and from her own insatiable curiosity. When she looked down into the valley from her palace on the hill, the queen often wondered what life was like for her subjects. And not content to sit and wonder, she would often slip off her crown, dress up like a peasant, and go down into the valley to learn from her people. Meanwhile, on the hill to the north stood a tall, gleaming tower. This was the home of the alchemist, a well-read man, a man of great learning and a genius inventor. The alchemist was generous with his gifts too. He used his brain in service of the kingdom, and he gave away his inventions wherever he saw a need. But unlike the queen, the alchemist didn't spend much time among the people, getting to know them, and so more often than not, the inventions that he gave away were solutions to problems that nobody had. His latest had been a machine to help cows keep from climbing trees and getting stuck in them. And so the days and the months and the years passed by in general peace and prosperity, with the town flanked on one side by an alchemist who knew all about things, and on the other by a philosopher queen who understood people. And life went on like this until the day the rain stopped. You see, each day a gentle rain would fall upon the valley, not a storm or a deluge, but just enough to water the crops. A rain so regular you could set your watch by it. But on that fateful day, the rain did not come. The people of the town looked up to the sky at 2 p.m. to set their watches, and the rains were not there. And they shrugged their shoulders, thinking this was a one-off, and went about their business, thinking nothing of it, until the next day when they looked up at 2 p.m., and once again the rains did not fall. Day after day, and for weeks on end, the rain continued to not fall, and soon the alchemist predicted there would be a problem. If the rain does not return, he said, we shall soon run out of food. And so he came up with a plan. I shall gather the wisest, the richest, the most powerful people in the town. We shall retreat into my tower until we've devised a solution. And that's just what he did. He sent out invitations and was soon joined by the mayor, by the master of the Merchants Guild, and by a minor noble, a cousin of the queen. The mayor knew that as the leader, he would lead these people wisely in a time of crisis simply because he was the mayor. The merchant knew that if they just let the markets solve it, everything would be fine eventually. And the minor noble was convinced she was a very important person with a very important voice, even if she didn't have anything to say. As long as she was being listened to, she was fine. The four ascended to the top of the tower and began to debate the solution to the oncoming famine. We must devise a way to make the clouds heavy with water again, said the alchemist. Perhaps we should put out a poll first, said the mayor. Or, said the merchant, we could institute a tax cut on ponchos and make the ground more attractive to the rain. The noble said, everybody listen to me! And they did. And that was better. Soon the alchemist and all his guests were so wrapped up in being right and hearing themselves talk, they forgot what the initial problem was. Meanwhile, on the other hill, the queen was looking down over her people. She'd received the alchemist's invitation, but had refused to retreat to his tower, for the queen had observed something that made her curious. The rains have stopped, she said, and famine may come, but the people do not panic. Intrigued, she disguised herself in her peasant's garb and went out amongst the people. Everyone continues to work, she thought. No one is leaving town. She continued through the town until she came upon an old farmer hard at work on his harvest. What will you do when there's no more food? She asked. Doesn't the drought frighten you? Oh, I'm nervous enough, my dear. It could well be that the rains don't come back, but I've lived a long time, and I've been seen through droughts like this before, and even if very few others remember them. Well, how did you all get by then? She asked. Well, we put aside a portion of the year's crops and rationed them out. And now you do the same? We'll try, but there's not enough space to store what we need, and no time to build more. The queen pondered what the old farmer had to say as she continued to wander, and came upon an old seamstress, stopped in her tracks. Don't look so fretful, young lady. The drought will not last long. Well, how do you know? After the last drought, long ago, there followed a very harsh winter, harsh and snowy. And when the snows melted that spring, they flooded the river and brought the farmland back to life again. I imagine the same will happen again. But isn't a flood as bad as a drought? Perhaps. But we can rebuild easily enough. I only hope there will be enough shelter for us when the river rises. The queen walked back to her palace on the hill, pondering all she had learned in the village. And when she arrived home and saw all of the empty rooms, she knew what she needed to do. She called out to her steward. Have this wing of the palace turned into storerooms, she told him. Send messengers into the town. Tell the farmers to bring the food they're saving here, and have the rest of the people gather jars of whatever fresh water they can spare. And so they did. And as the drought progressed into famine, the queen and her steward made sure that all who needed food and water received what was fair. And when the winter arrived and the snows were harsh and plentiful, just as the seamstress had said, as winter turned into spring, the snows melted and the river rose. Once more the queen called for her steward. Have this wing of the palace turned into a sheltering space. Send messages into the town and let everyone know they should come and stay here on high ground until the river recedes. And so the townspeople made the journey up the southern hill and waited out the flood in the grand palace of the queen. And when the river receded, the queen sent her soldiers and advisors into town with the people to help rebuild while the farmers replanted in the rich, renewed soil. Which is also about the time that the alchemist and his little council emerged from their tower. Good news, my friend, said the alchemist. We have a problem to all your solutions. You're gonna love it, said the merchant. It was my idea, said the noble, mostly. The crowd turned in expectation. They'd almost forgotten that the Alchemist Council had existed, and the council had pretty much forgotten about the nature of the town's actual problem over all that time. So it should come as no surprise that the alchemist and his cohorts found a solution to a problem that no one had. This, said the alchemist, is a machine that will prevent your pigs from flying and scaring the clouds away. The crowd pondered the gift for a moment and finally said, no thanks, no. And the townspeople, along with the queen and all her servants, went back to work restoring the town. And they asked the alchemist to write down what had happened and what they'd done so that the next generations would remember. And it was so, and it was not so, that the town returned to its former state of peace and prosperity. And the alchemist started to question the wisdom of staying locked in his tower. And the queen grew in wisdom as wide as her open doors. It is part of our collective spiritual practice as a community to enter into prayerful and meditative time each week. We call this time joys and sorrows. We ponder all that has gone well for us, all that worries us, all that has caused us pain. You are invited to take a few minutes to reflect on those things that you are carrying in your hearts and minds. Those who are online may share joys and sorrows in the chat box, and those on site are invited to come and place stones in our common bowl in silence for your joys and sorrows. Let us sing now together, Spirit of Life, first in Spanish, then in English.
Vente de amor, ven hacia mí y al corazón cántale tu compasión.
Please join with me now in a spirit of prayer and reflection. The words of our prayer this morning come from the Reverend Katie Kandarian Morris. O God of many names, the personal and mysterious, we have come to a quiet time, an interior place, a place for the deepening of spirit, the enrichment of soul. We seek to know ourselves by knowing you. Let us have the courage to sit in the unknowing, to look for the answers even when they are to sit with our own questions, to be willing to be authentic with ourselves, to be ready to bring our face to the world. Let us be willing to know others by welcoming their genuine features, by welcoming them into the world, by appreciating the beauty that comes from seeing wholeness and truth. Let us together now sit in that quiet depth.
What we need is here. 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 What we need. What we need is here. What we need is
I'm going to open with a story that I can't remember if I've already told here or not in the brief time I've been here. Many years back, as the Black Lives Matter movement was taking shape, there was amongst my people in Los Alamos the sense that we needed to make some kind of a statement. We needed to put up a banner like so many other churches were doing. But I lived in a slightly more conservative region, if you can believe that, compared to here. And it was a hard sell to make. It wasn't enough for the minister to just say, let it be so. There needed to be some massaging, some convincing, some persuading. And I found myself at a loss to figure out quite how to do that. I didn't have enough of a depth of an argument. I didn't have the right words. I just had me making my case over and over again. And it finally got to a point where I was sitting in the sanctuary one weekday, mind wandering as I was putting together a sermon and thinking on this problem, when I engaged in what had become, at that point, my regular prayer during the week, which was just to look up to the universe and say, and? Before I'd even gotten to improvisation, the "and" part had already been important to me, so much so that my only tattoo is a quill pen drawing an ampersand on my shoulder. That was my sense of being open to the universe around me. And in that moment, no answer came. But in the week that followed, I received a letter, not an email. I received a letter from one of the young people in the congregation, one of the young people of color in my congregation. And they passionately laid out why they needed their church to make a statement, to say something, to make that happen. And I said, aha, there is my answer. The persuasion doesn't need to come from the minister. The persuasion is right here in the words of one of our own young people, deeply impacted by the movement. And so I copied that letter and shared it around. And we finally decided it was time to hang a Black Lives Matter banner outside the church. And I wrote a little statement for the public about what we were doing, and I sent that off to the editor of the paper to put up when we timed it all for that day, and we put up the sign. And I sent a note that morning to our police chief as well, just to say, look, we're doing this. This is not a statement about you or anybody else. This is a statement about a wider thing. And he wrote me back to say, I appreciate you telling me this. And then an hour after we put the sign up and I was at work, somebody from the county code enforcement office came to tell me that we were in violation of the sign code. Be careful who you speak to, I guess, that we couldn't have it outside, that we hadn't applied for the proper permits. And so I, listening to an answer from the universe, moved it inside the windows and called it an art installation, and there it remained. I learned a few lessons about trust in that episode. Be careful who you put your trust in. But also, I can trust the universe. Now, I'm not talking about the universe as some kind of broad mystical force. The universe is anything that's anthropomorphized. But trust in the universe is an exercise in mindfulness, in a reminder to be open to what is going on around me, to be open to an answer that will arrive if I put my trust in my own self and in the others I am in community with. Wait a minute. Trust in myself? Well, that's a big ask. I don't know what your experience is, but I certainly struggle with trusting my own self. I second guess my instincts all the time. My sense of imposter syndrome is bigger than my ego sometimes. What do you mean, trust myself? And others? Trust others? Have you met others? They disappoint you all the time. And yet, trust in the universe, because an answer is out there. How do we do that when self and others are so unreliable? And I'm here to tell you this morning that the answer is MacGyver. Jess and I have been indulging in a little mind candy in the evenings. We've been watching the revival of the series MacGyver from the last few years on Paramount Plus and enjoying the hell out of it. It's so much fun and it's so ridiculous because, of course, here is this brilliant scientific mind and he gets caught in these ridiculous traps every week and manages somehow to get out of these traps using sound scientific principles and whatever happens to be lying around him. Whatever he needs is right there when he needs it to get out of the trap. But I mean, when does that happen? How ridiculous is that? But on the other hand, part of me thinks it's possible. I mean, here's the thing. I don't have a science mind. That is not my form of intelligence. I'm not looking at a room the same way, say, a MacGyver might look at a room and what is in it. His intelligence allows him to see the world around him in a specific way, and mine gives me a perspective on the room that I am in. I'm enamored of the concept of multiple intelligences, of the multiple ways there are of knowing and understanding the world around us. There's many of them, and some of us contain just one. Maybe we approach the world from multiple intelligences within our own selves. But we can know the world through what we see or hear. We can know the world through the movement of our bodies and the movement of bodies around us. We can know it musically. We can know it from a place of compassion. We all have different ways of knowing about the room we are in together. And so when I talk about trusting in myself and trusting in others, I'm talking about trusting those ways of knowing that I know are contained within me, and trusting the ways of knowing what is contained within you, and getting out of my own way enough to accept ideas that might not have originated in my own skull. There's the challenge. A lot of times I am the alchemist. I am enamored of what I know, even though I doubt myself and second-guess myself. I will retreat into that ivory tower until, by God, I have come up with the answer to the problem I am facing. And very often, it is an answer to a problem nobody had in the first place. The scope of the problem, of the community, of the thing that we are trying to build exists at the intersection of all of us. Not to bore you to death with improvisation, but there's a concept we work with called working from the top of your intelligence. It's those multiple intelligences again, using what you know inherently, instinctively, to add to what we are building together, and having the humility and the grace enough to accept the gifts that are being offered from outside your own head to fit together into building this thing we didn't even know existed, we didn't even know we needed, out of the intersection of all that we are together. The answer exists at the intersection of all of us, and whatever it is we're trying to do together, we do not have to fix the thing, we do not have to resist the thing, we do not have to build the thing, we do not have to answer the thing alone. We can't fix it, resist it, build it, answer it alone. And so when those moments of self-doubt crawl in, when I start to second-guess what I know and what I don't know, when I don't know what to do next, I pray and look in a new direction. Lost my place. Problem with technology. I found myself in this position about this time last year as I was going through the whole search process for coming into a new church. Around about this time of year, Friends, it was not going well. Things were not turning out the way that I knew they were going to turn out. See, I had a plan. I had a 10-step plan. And by God, it was going to carry out by those 10 steps. Except no. No, nothing went the way I planned. Nothing turned out the way I thought it was going to turn out. By this point in the process, end of February, beginning of March, I was beginning to despair. I didn't know what I was going to do next. And then I paused. And then I looked in a different direction. And then there were you guys. I'm going to be honest, you were not on my radar in the first portions of this process. But there you were. And Jess and I have always held a belief that in this process, subtract the 10 steps out of it, we would end up where we needed to be. And so we did. Trust is an exercise in letting go of the illusion of control. Because we're control addicts, all of us. It's human nature. I know, don't tell me you don't want to be in control of everything. Trust is an exercise of letting go of that sense of control. Control over what we know or think we know or what we don't know. Control over what we can or can't do. Control over what others can or cannot do. Control over our inherent fallibility. Control over our sense of ego. Control over the thing inside me that leads me to value my own mind over others. To be more like the philosopher queen and see and accept the answers from whence they come. Wendell Berry has this lovely poem called The Wild Geese. Horseback on Sunday morning, harvest over, we taste persimmon and wild grape, sharp sweet of summer's end. In time's maze over full fields, we name names that went west from here, names that rest on graves. We open a persimmon seed to find the tree that stands in promise, pale in the seed's marrow. Geese appear high over us, pass, and the sky closes. Abandon, as in love or sleep, holds them to their way, clear in the ancient faith. What we need is here. And we pray, not for new earth or heaven, but to be quiet in heart and in eye, clear. What we need is here. These are times when it's hard to trust. But trust is the thing we're going to need to come back again and again. Because to fully give up on that sense of trust and that ability to do it now will be to allow defeat. We need to maintain that sense so that together we can fix, we can resist, we can build, we can answer. And so now we need to turn again and again to the place where that trust begins. In that space where we allow ourselves finally to let go of control. to lean into the place where we know we are not alone, so that we may gather at the space where all our ways of knowing intersect to build the new thing. What we need is here. Everything we need is right in front of us. May it be so.
I know this rose will open. I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose will open. I know this rose will open. I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose will open. I know this rose will open. I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose will open.
When I started thinking about the theme of trust, I had a really hard time figuring out what to say, because what did I trust? First of all, I think that trust and belief are connected. I think that they're very much the same thing. And there wasn't much that I trusted. I don't trust in any God, creator, or any kind of supreme being watching over us. I don't trust in a beneficent universe, and I don't trust that everything happens for a reason. I don't have a whole lot of trust of people in general, and I'm not even sure I trust that there's an arc of justice operating on this world. Thinking about what I trust, I wondered what accounts for my generally happy and cheerful disposition. I have not led a charmed life. There have been problems, griefs, disappointments, and failures. I'm not oblivious to injustice or wrong or evil. As anyone who has talked to me lately knows, I do not look at the world through rose-colored glasses. To many people, it would seem that my beliefs lead to despair, gloom, and hopelessness. How can I possibly be content, satisfied with my life, and even joyful? I haven't thought about these things for a long time. I haven't had to articulate them since seminary 45 years ago. But lately I've been challenged. And my response has been to move much closer to atheism. So given all that, as an atheist, what on earth, in this my one and only life, do I trust? I think that we often start out trusting that we know how to live, that we know what the best life for us will be. And then life happens. By the time you're my age, you find out whether you were right or not. There are no do-overs, so it matters. And I'm old enough to say that now I no longer trust things because I know that the choices I happened to make when I was in my 20s and 30s, and even in my 50s, were the right choices for me. Each of us is different, and obviously my choices are not going to be yours. But this is my reflection. If you want to be a growership associate, you get to give yours. We need new people. I trusted that what I do, how I choose to live, makes a difference. When I say thank you to the cashier at the grocery store and make eye contact, when I patiently go over my homework my students did not do, when I send dad jokes to my friends on Facebook, these things are obvious, and I get immediate feedback telling me that I'm being helpful. But I also trusted that trying to be what I consider to be a good person would matter. In my case, that meant being as compassionate as my judgmental self would allow, trying to be less arrogant than comes naturally to me, and trying to do justice as best I can. I trusted that trying to be this kind of person would be a good thing for me and others. And I have found that to be true. When I was younger, I trusted that when groups of people come together to do justice, both they and the world are changed for the better. Whether it was my South Bronx commune organizing rent strikes, or farm workers in California organizing a union, or lesbians in superhero capes and tiaras marching down Fifth Avenue, I've seen history be changed by groups of ordinary people. And the people learned of their own power and their courage. I trusted that though progress often backtracks, and for every 3 steps forward, there are 2.5 steps backward, still there's that 1/2 step gain. And the next movement will start out with a little more knowledge, a little more experience. I've seen that happen with second wave and third wave feminism. I trusted that choosing to live as if the world I wanted to see already existed would lead to a better life for me, and that my ideas might open new possibilities for other people. And what I've seen and experienced is that this is true. And finally, I trusted that living in community is always better than not. Being with people whose values I share requires accountability and effort and compromise. But for me, being in community, and I admit that I fell into my communities mostly by accident, has given me courage, support, and love. So thank you for being one of my communities. Mostly what I've learned is that for me, trusting that being in what most of the world called unrealistic, impractical, too idealistic, and a dreamer has led to both a fulfilling and joyful life. May each of you be so fortunate in your choices. And now we come to the fun part of the service. As a community of faith, we share what we can with one another. We offer ourselves through the ministries of this church by giving to and receiving from one another. One of those gifts is our financial resources. Your financial generosity makes it possible for us to live out our principles in our church and beyond our doors, keeping hope and courage and forgiveness and compassion alive. You may make a financial contribution online through the Giving app or by check. Those who are online those who are on site may place a check in the box in the Gerber room labeled for that purpose. This is a time to share what you can With gratitude, we give and receive these gifts.
Good morning. My name's Jim Beidler, and I go by the pronouns he and him. I'm struck by today's service, all the elements, like Pat's so profound and so deep reflection, the story that we had of the philosopher queen, the songs, and sometimes you need a little humor too. I don't know how many of you listen to KYW radio in Philadelphia ever, but it's an all news format, but they have a particular advertiser, Norman Chaikin, who goes by Norman the Floorman. And before he gives you his pitch for tile or for carpeting, he cracks a corny joke. And the closest he gets to religion, and I'll do this in my best Philly accent, So I was thinking about becoming an atheist, but then I realized you don't get any holidays. No shade on you, Pat. So back to the serious then. This is a stewardship moment. Thank you to all of you who answered the call that we extended last week as we began our pledge campaign to record your financial commitments for the fiscal year that begins July 1. On behalf of the Stewardship Committee, I wanted to underline a special aspect of this year's campaign, which is a match promised by a couple of very generous members. First, a little bit of background. When we began sketching together financial plans last fall for this coming fiscal year, our treasurer, Lynn O'Brien, clanged the alarm bell that 25-26 would be some $40,000 short if the current trends continued. That gave us the impetus to approach these generous members to ask if they'd consider to make available a pool of funds to match any new pledger or an existing pledge unit that raised their pledges up to a limit of $20,000 between them. Seeing the added spirit we have with so many visitors and members and many good plans that Reverend John has for next year, both these folks agreed. So that's the challenge to the rest of us. We have 20,000 of that 40,000 that we're short that's on the table for the taking. And the rest of us have the opportunity to fill that 20,000. For those who haven't pledged before, this is your opportunity to double the good that your money will do. Just from last week alone with the kickoff, we already have almost $3,000 in raises, almost 15% of the way. We're looking at a short time frame. We're trying to have all the pledges back by March 23rd in 3 weeks. So please join me in filling out a pledge card or using the QR code that's on the pledge brochure. There are plenty of more. You should have gotten a pledge brochure in the mail already and through an e-blast, but there are also plenty in the Gerber room. So I hope you will consider that in the next 3 weeks and be a part of this great matching campaign. Blessed be.
Thank you, Jim. Important announcements and upcoming events can be found on the back page of your order of service, at our website, on our Facebook page, and in our weekly email newsletter, The Univoice. A few to highlight from the pulpit this week, however. First, yes, please do get in your pledge forms by the end of this month, the last Sunday, March 23rd. That helps us more accurately put together our financial picture moving into July 1 before we get to our spring meeting. Theology 101, my online class, begins this Thursday, March 6th at 7 p.m. There is still plenty of room. You can find the link to sign up in this week's edition of the Univoice as well. Come and join us. We're going to have some healthy, hearty conversations there. And finally, two more. One, if you're here for the All We Can Save circles that are happening today, those are going to happen pretty soon, right after the service. Go grab a cup of coffee in the Gerber room and head on up to the second floor of the Chalice House where we are set up for the circle there. And our service auction is coming up quickly. It's just a little over a month away. It'll take place on Saturday, April 12th this year. The website is now live, uuworks.org/auction for your donation ideas and frequently asked questions, and to submit your items to be sold during the auction. And come join us for the event for food and fun and fellowship and fundraising. Watch the Univoice for more updates and contact Frank Wilder, sitting there in the back on our AV station with any more questions you might have about that. And now, would you all please rise once more, embody your spirit, and join in singing our closing hymn, number 108.
when tyrants tremble as they hear the bells of freedom ringing, when friends rejoice both far and near, how can I keep from singing? To prison cell and dungeon vile, our thoughts to them are winging. When friends by shame are undefiled, how can I keep from singing?
Friends, may life bless us and keep us. May the light of life shine upon us and out from within us and be gracious to us and bring us peace. For this is the day. This is the one wild and precious life we have been given. So let us all find a way to rejoice and be glad in it. Go in peace. Welcome.